Okay. Hi, David. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Happy Thursday. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. All right. So, welcome to another episode of Simple Money, where we sort of randomly talk about things we think are happening and going on, and sharing a perspective from kind of two different viewpoints. An older guy like me and my younger son. So, what are you talking about today, Dave? What's on your mind?
Yeah, today we're talking about the FIRE movement, and what FIRE means is financial independence, retire early, and it's been gaining some steam. Or at least I've been seeing a lot more of it talked about on social media and Twitter and stuff like that, and have read about it kind of on the random happenings and money blogs and whatnot. So figured it'd be an interesting discussion between me and you, and kind of get our thoughts and different perspectives on it and how we kind of view it. So,
So
yeah.
those are big words, right? Financial independence, and financial is already a
Hmm.
scary topic for a lot of people. Independence, is probably going to mean different things to different people, but financial independence certainly is a big topic. And then, retire early and, define retirement. What's that mean to different people? Where does it all go? The rest of it. And I've been hearing about this for quite a while. I haven't done a lot of research on it, but sort of looking at the root of where some of it comes from. It comes from a book that we actually use in some of our own classes, right? And that's the basis of the project, or sorry, the class we teach called "What Is Enough," right? Which is
Hmm.
based a lot on the principles that are taught in the book called "Your Money or Your Life." Again, "Your Money or Your Life," which is a great book actually. Did you read the whole book, Dave? I can't remember.
I've not read the whole book. It's on the list of books to read, but haven't been there yet. So that's cool to learn that that's where it came from.
Yeah, so that's where actually a lot of the tenets that are taught in "Your Money or Your Life." All right, so what's the basic idea of FIRE?
The basic idea, at least from my understanding of it and my perspective, is to save early, save often, and be financially independent. So no longer rely on having a job, going to work, having working income, and to be able to retire, in it early. Again, that's a kind of an open ended. What is early? Is that in your 30s, 40s? Feels like in most cases that I've read about, it's wanting to retire in your early 40s or late 30s, something like that. So
And
that's my understanding. Yeah.
and is there a budgeting component? I mean, how do they view I understand it's all about saving
Hmm.
aggressively, but is it also about sacrificing budget?
It is, yeah. And I think there's broken off from this fire concept. I think there's like the lean fire, and then I don't know what the other term is, the fat fire, where you can really work in your early working years, your 20s, to live really frugally and invest as much and as often as you can. And then once you're at that point of you wanting to take the fire and retire early, then you also are living frugally and living below your means again, even though you're retired. And there's the other side of that as well. Maybe you don't want to give up things that are important in your life early on, or maybe you want to retire and live a bigger lifestyle. So I think there's kind of two sides to the coin that are going to mean different things to different people. And, I don't know which one is a more sought after position, but,
Yeah.
both I think kind of out there.
Well, so it's interesting to think about. Now you've used the word frugal, living smaller. Um, I think it's probably helpful for people, because I think people understand sort of the basic concept. Okay, so we make some money, we save some money, we don't spend money we don't want to spend, and therefore we can grow our money that we're not spending today, which for many people we know is very difficult, right? So budgets
Mhm.
are strained, but a very basic tenet of all of this, no matter if you're trying to achieve this fire concept or just sort of living life and trying to grow wealth and create some sort of financial security, is at a very basic level we talk about income, right? And then you have
Mhm.
money comes in the top, you have committed expenses, discretionary expenses, and hopefully there's something left over. But what's that? What do we have to assume basically? that if there's money coming in, money going out, what's the very first thing people have to understand?
They have to understand where that money's going.
Okay.
I think.
And do they need a gap between what they're earning and what they're spending?
Yeah, of course. If you're trying to invest and achieve this fire concept, yes, there would have to be a surplus of more money coming in than more money leaving, essentially. So your fixed expenses are less than what you're earning at a job or
And so given my 30 plus years of experience in the mortgage business and your 5 plus years of experience in the mortgage business and the thousands of clients we've helped, do most people know how much money goes in and goes out?
no. Most people don't. When you ask them the basic question of how much do you earn, that's sometimes a tripping question for them. So no, people don't. And then on the other side of that, trying to get people to understand what they're actually paying and even a mortgage payment. Hey, what's your interest rate on your mortgage? Oh, I don't really know. Right. So it's a it's a it's a step to nail down maybe, and that most people don't even think about of what they're spending money on and debts and everything in life.
Right. So I mean, I think this is fascinating to think that, there's an entire movement around financial independence, retire early, and yet our own anecdotal evidence, which admittedly is not a huge sampling, but it's, several thousand families. And, and I think if you talk to, 90% of people in the mortgage or any financial space, we're going to find the same thing, that most people don't really know what they make. They don't really know what they spend. And so it's an admirable goal to, try and achieve some sort of independence and retire whenever you want to retire. But from an educational standpoint, which is what we're trying to do, is teach people to think about this. They got to have at least understand, there's a gap. And in order to have any goal of financial independence or security, you actually have to spend less money than's coming in, right?
Hmm.
A very
Yep.
basic concept. Do you feel like people your age even grasp that idea?
I think when you break it down as simply as that, yes, everybody can grasp that
Okay,
idea.
good.
Whether or not we actually know that, then no. I don't think most people my age really go into that nitty gritty of knowing what they make and what they're spending. In fact, I was talking to a friend the other day, and they're just talking about it's like, oh, I learned real quick that I couldn't afford my credit card bill this month, and I was like, oh, okay, well there you go. He learned because there was a large number on the credit card bill and didn't have the same amount of number in his checking account. So
All right. So
it's a quick way
and
to
and,
learn.
and hopefully that's a temporary problem, right? So I mean,
Yes,
those
yes.
things can happen, and life happens. And one of the things we tell our clients, and I tell people all the time, life happens. Don't stress about it, right? Forget
Yep.
what happened, and let's move forward, and you sort
Hmm.
of figure it out from here. All right. So again, sort of an effort to try and help people think through this and create some sort of planning process. So they got to create a budget, and we know that budget is a bad word for most people. We teach a process, right, David, with 3 buckets. Right? You want to just talk through
Hmm.
a very basic budgeting, not even budget, how to think about your cash flow. You want to just talk about that briefly?
Yeah, sure. I think we're talking about the three bucket kind of system that we chat through, and essentially the first bucket, we kind of think about it as our income coming in, or let's think about the bucket as like a checking account or where do we keep our money
Mm-hmm,
in.
mm-hmm,
So on the 1st or the 15th or whenever we get paid of the month, we'll have money coming in, and so that money comes in. We hopefully get a semi consistent source of income. And from that bucket, then we have our expenses. So we have things like rent or a mortgage, maybe a car payment, some insurance costs, or something like that. So these are things that are going to be expenses every single month, generally the same. They might increase here and there throughout the years, but generally the same. And so now we have an idea of, hey, let's say we make $4,000 a month, and our rent and our insurance and our cars $3,000 a month. Well, great. Now we know that we're bringing in more than we're spending on our fixed expenses.
mm-hmm.
And then another added layer to that is then we have discretionary expenses. So obviously we have food and we need food to survive, but we have food. There's the choice of whether to go grocery shopping or eating out every meal. There's fun, if you're going to golf or going to the theme park or whatever you're doing. And so then that adds up, and we can look back, I think, on the past couple of months and see what we generally spend on those discretionary expenses, and then maybe it's 4,000, and so we kind of learned that we're taking in $4,000 a month, and $4,000 a month is going out, and then there's no surplus. And so we got to find a way to, one, we'll find a gap essentially that you talked about, right? Find the gap that there's a surplus so that we can invest, and that can be increasing income or that can be decreasing your expenses.
Yeah.
Uh,
Then if you have a surplus, so that's the first
mm,
bucket, managing daily, weekly, monthly cash flows. Or then what happens
mhm.
if we do have a surplus? It sweeps into,
So once we find that surplus, let's call it $200 a month or something in this case, then we'll sweep that into our savings account. And so every month that transfer can go into our savings account. And essentially we want to build up that savings account a little bit so that we have a buffer, right? What if your
yeah,
car breaks down, an unexpected, health cost, or something that was out of the ordinary that we need to take care of, that then we don't want to go put it on a credit card or tap into other debt.
sure.
So once you have your emergency fund in place, and you're continuing to build up that surplus, then that third bucket is the investing bucket, and so that $200 a month can then be swept into our investing bucket, and investing in things like stocks, bonds, and other things that can grow over time. And we've chatted a little bit about compound interest in past episodes, so once you can take advantage of compound interest and things like that, then you can be on your way to the FIRE movement, I guess.
Yeah, that's right. And so proponents of the FIRE movement, which I think is great if it's something that you're into. Um, Again, I think the lessons are larger lessons about independence and finance in general. But anyway, so the proponents of FIRE are super aggressive about minimizing, the outflow and trying to maximize the inflow. So their surplus, their gap is large enough so they can sock as much money through bucket number two and bucket number three, that ultimately the assets they're building outside of their earned income, right? So when you think about money coming in, you have money that you earn, you trade your time, your work, your effort, your brain, your skills to get money. Someone pays you to do something, and that's money you're using. And the idea of financial independence would be to get to the point where you no longer have to you don't have to do those activities. They become optional, right? So your paycheck optional, so that all the assets outside of that process are generating the income and revenue you need to live your lifestyle, whether it's a small little lifestyle, if you're still continuing to be frugal, or if you decide you want to now live a different lifestyle because now you have more freedom and independence. Which then I think in my mind starts to move towards, what does financial independence really mean? I mean, what are people trying to achieve with financial independence? Do you have a sense for what people are looking for that are younger, that are looking for this independence? What do they want?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I actually ran across an article a few months ago on, this guy retired at, I think it was like 33 or
Hmm?
something like that, and it was what he was doing to live, and he achieved the quote unquote FIRE movement. And in his case, he was a single guy who was in a high income tech job for the first 10 to 12 years of his career, and he had lived frugally below his means and saved a bunch of money, and his version of FIRE was to live out of his van, and that was it. So it was very minimal expenses. He had a van that was paid for and built out, and he could live out of it and move around, and didn't cost much. So that was his version of FIRE. I don't know that I could do that for the rest of my life and consider that a retirement. So, maybe he'll have new thoughts coming in a couple of years. But I think it goes again. This is personal kind of wants and needs, and I think all of us basically want more time with family, more time with friends, and maybe more time to explore some personal passions or travel and things like that. So I think there's a healthy balance that we can strike and find that maybe we can do those things, but still, I mean, I know I would get bored every day if I wasn't working. So I would need some sort of job or passion or thing to keep me going.
Yeah. Well, again, I think this leads us towards the idea of psychology. I've heard lots of people saying, "Hey, I want to retire X, Y, Z," and great. So what are you going to retire and do? What are you going to retire from? I do think there's an element of, folks that have had to work hard, right? They're doing the 9 to 5 or 8 to 7 or 60 to 80, whatever their hours are, that they feel like
Hmm.
they need to put in to live their life. And it's a grind and they get done with it. And so I think what they're really trying to say in many cases, is they want that to change, right? They don't like
Yeah.
that aspect of
Hmm.
life, which oftentimes means they haven't found a way or really thought through. Maybe it's not found, but they haven't thought through what an ideal lifestyle would look like, right? And so my advice for people is sort of really start to spend some time about thinking about your ideal lifestyle. Is your ideal lifestyle working from 9 in the morning till 2 in the afternoon, and then playing golf every afternoon, or going and doing something else, or hanging out with your kids, your family? And I don't know the answer for everyone, but I think if you do have a little more intentionality around designing your life and your ideal lifestyle, it might become clearer that the money needed to support that ideal lifestyle, because then you're starting to tie together the idea of kind of my lifestyle, money needed for that lifestyle, and what I have to trade my time and energy to get to there. And that's the whole idea of your money or your life. To just quickly summarize, the big idea in that book, Your Money or Your Life, is that you're trading your energy to get money to buy stuff that then is in your life, and you have to take care of it, pay for it, clean it, store it, whatever, right? And so it's just stuff, and then a few years later, the stuff is gone. And there's a concept in the book called the fulfillment curve, and we know that as you acquire more stuff, the joy and the energy you get from that stuff diminishes over time. Like the first time you buy your very first TV after your first job, or your first laptop, or your first skateboard, or whatever it is that's important to you, it's like the greatest thing ever, right? And then it breaks, and then you buy another one. Then all of a sudden, your 10th TV just doesn't have. There's just not a whole lot of fulfillment to it anymore, and it just becomes clutter and stuff. So anyway, I only bring it up because I think it's a really important consideration for folks to when they're trying to analyze ideal lifestyle and money needed for some sort of financial independence and retirement type of program, to kind of achieve that. Uh, anyway, do you see sort of that sort of thinking happening?
Yeah. Well, no, I see that thinking for sure. I think that I mean, I see that thinking a lot. Like, for example, on these debates that you get into online with, you see people talking about fire movement, or financial advisors that you talk to that talk about this movement, and their clients are so focused on a certain age to retire, and they're going to do everything they can to do that. And it's almost like, take a step back, and what are you really trying to achieve here? Um, is sacrificing things today worth it? Is not being able to spend time with your family today, worth retiring a couple years early? I don't know. I think, yeah, take a step back, and you do have to look at your lifestyle and see what it is. And I think that's a big part of, younger folks entering the workforce as well. We may look at jobs and benefits and things like that, and some of them are really attractive, like, oh, you get 2 days off a month for an energy reset or whatever it is, or you get unlimited PTO. I know that's a big thing,
Hmm.
and can travel, and so I think there's more of a movement of, hey, yeah, I want to work, but I also want more flexibility to do things in my life. And even a different article I read, but I thought was interesting, and can get your perspective on this. It was a study done in, I think it was in Europe or London, something like that, and it was about a bunch of companies kind of subscribed to this study that was going on, 30 or 40 companies, and they essentially moved all the employees from a 5-day work week, 9 to 5, to then a 4-day work week. It's still 9 to 5, just for 4 days. So cutting out, a day of work, and what would happen in productivity and happiness and all these things. And productivity stayed the same. People were getting the same amount of work done on time. They were happier. And most of them even came back and said that they would take a pay cut to
Mhm.
work less.
Yeah.
So it was interesting.
Interesting enough, I read the same article,
Yeah.
and yeah, it was fascinating, right? So productivity remained about the same, um, and in some cases it actually improved, and so forth. And I did notice the part where some people were willing to take a pay cut to do that. What I think is exciting about today that didn't exist 3 decades ago, and certainly didn't exist 6 or 7 decades ago, was the flexibility that the generations younger than I am, even we have it too, right? So the flexibility that we have to live a lifestyle that is a little more detached from the 9 to 5, is detached from the commitment of working super hard to make money to be able to enjoy your lifestyle, is a lot more flexible. One of the movements that started, back in my world 20 or 30 years ago was the idea of part-time retirements. You retire for a year and then you go back to work. And there's fear around that because what if I can't work again, or what if something happens? But nonetheless, I think with technology, with remote work, with all these different, AI as the tools are coming, I think all of that's going to become possible for people now. And so, uh, as we kind of come to the close here, I think the key is defining what independence means. We understand the financial part, right? So at the end of the day, the bottom line is you got to make more money than you spend to save money, and then you're trying to grow assets to be able to live off those assets at least part time, right? So maybe you're working part time. You're not working the big job anymore. You're working, at a golf course, helping people. I mean, I've run into people where we live now that they're semi-retired and they're working 20 hours as a marshal on a golf course, and it's like the best job ever because they get a free round of golf
Sounds
and
great.
they get breakfast included or whatever it might be, right? And for them, it's like the greatest thing ever, and they're happier than they've ever been, and so those kinds of things. Anyway, so
Yeah.
that being
hmm
said, lifestyle, think about lifestyle, tying together
hmm
what's important to you with your trading of time to get money to pay for the lifestyle, and the rest of it is really really key. And read the book, right? And if you ever see our class, what is enough? It's up online. We'll put a link in the show notes to it, and you can learn a little bit more about it. We talk about the fulfillment curve and everything else. So, what do you want? What do you want to? What words of advice do you have, Dave, for our listeners today?
Yeah, I guess kind of same. I mean, it was important. It's been a big change in my life. You teaching me kind of the ideal lifestyle concept and really putting pen to paper and jotting down what I view my ideal lifestyle today, tomorrow, in a year, in 5 years, in 10 years. Um, Actually, putting pen to paper really kind of changes things, right? Because you'll think of some stuff in your head and you think, oh, I want this when I'm 30 or 40 or whatever it is. But once you put it down on a piece of paper, it becomes real, and more things come to mind than you thought. And what's important really comes down. Spending time with family, friends, and whatever that might be comes down. So yeah, actually do that. Go through that exercise and find what's important to you and make it happen.
That's great. Um, and I will finish with just two thoughts to back that up. That uh, first, it's okay to dream, right? Dream big and do it now while you're thinking about it, and get that down on paper. However you're going to write it down. And then number two, it's okay for it to change, right? It's not
hmm
a big deal, right? It's where you are today. It might change in 2 months. It might change in 2 years. It might change in 20 years. That's what life's about, is kind of following the journey and having it change. So it's a lot of fun. So great. Well, thank you very much. Fun conversation today, David.
Awesome.
And
Thank you. Yeah.
yeah, we will talk to you all again soon. Bye.